Last thing I want to concentrate on is this notion of geeky leadership. And it's a label that I use because as we've been doing our work and going around and talking with a lot of different companies that are creating the future, I kept on hearing some common themes in the conversations, and I kept on seeing some very consistent patterns across these fairly different companies. So I just want to talk a bit more about what I mean when I say geeky leadership. The first thing is that it tends to be bold. The moonshots are the state of the art with fairly geeky companies. We want to organize all of the world's information. I want to disrupt the global car industry. I want to go to Mars. These are not minor ambitions. I want to change the way we buy computing power. So these companies are placing big bets and rallying pretty smart, pretty focused people to come help them with big bets. The way they're accomplishing, or the way they're trying to win those bets, to me, though, is incredibly interesting. They work in small, rapid steps, because the future is so hard to predict and so fuzzy that the only way we're going to get there and not make a bad call is to iterate frequently and course correct all the time. I saw a little while back that Facebook has 3- and 6-month plans and a 20-year vision. But that classic 5-year strategic planning horizon that I was taught when I was in business school is irrelevant for that company. Small steps, and then some kind of big idea of where we think the world is going to be a couple decades from now. These companies tend to be rigorous whenever they can about, instead of doing something, running an experiment, having a control group, doing an A/B test, and trying to borrow from that toolkit of science so they get some clarity on, was that a good idea or not, as opposed to, did the hippo think that was a good idea or not? What did the experiment tell us? And then finally, as we said earlier, these companies try hard to be dominated by the evidence. And of course, we all sit here and say, well, what else would dominate you? Lots of other things dominate discussions in organizations. There's charisma, there's clout, there's the persuasiveness of your pitch, there's your beautiful PowerPoint. There are lots of different ways to make decisions in organizations. What I respect is when the companies try incredibly hard to go where the data are taking them. And then finally, when the world is changing this quickly, and when good ideas can come from so many different places, this idea of the normal channel, or this idea of having things go up and down the hierarchy in a stable way, it really becomes a handicap. And I'm struck by how open and kind of freewheeling the discussions are in the companies that I've studied that I respect a lot, and how it's okay to speak up as a very junior person, to say things aren't working well as a pretty junior person, and to try to advocate for something better. I have a lot of respect for the openness with which they're approaching these conversations. Is this enough? Time will tell. But instead of a technology laundry list, this is what I see the excellent companies doing over and over.